All right. First, I'll start by telling you a bit of a story, which is nonfiction. This is a building called Ujima House. Actually, it's a rendering of the real building, but if you go to Wembley, you'll see it firsthand. Ujima House is a 12,000 square foot, 5-story building owned by one of the UK's leading housing associations. With a prominent location on a very busy high street in northwest London, the building is conveniently situated between 3 tube stations, none more than just a few minutes' walk. So in other words, this is a prime piece of London real estate. Over the past 2 months, a brilliant and well-established open access workshop by the name of Create Space London has undergone negotiations to secure this site for a 20-year lease. The planning here being to establish the site as a large-scale public workshop, providing affordable open access workshop space as well as private studio space, educational programs, community groups, and training. Yet, over the past few weeks, it's become evident that the local authority has an alternative future in mind for Ujima House. Given its prominent location and desirable square footage, Ujima House is ripe for redevelopment. The entire site has been included within the council's new housing zone, which the delivery of such has been named the council's top priority. So much so that the local authority refused to support Create Space London's bid to the Regeneration Fund, the council remaining quite clear that they were only willing to support meanwhile occupation of the site by the workshops, their ideal positioning being meanwhile flexible agreement rather than the 20-year lease. Devoted to their cause, this great group of makers plans to move forward with the Housing Association to secure the 20-year lease regardless. A move which has brought about loose threats from the council to issue a compulsory purchase order, which if anyone doesn't know what a CPO means, it's essentially a legal act allowing local authorities to acquire land without owner's permission. So I doubt this case comes to a surprise to many of you. Creative workspace has a long history of precariousness, especially in urban settings, and also quite possibly it has a significant future. A study recently published by the GLA notes that such circumstances only show to increase as income potential for residential housing is proving exponentially more lucrative than creative workspace. So what I do at my day job is I'm undertaking a PhD in materials and process at the Institute of Making, which is at UCL. So I spend much of my time facilitating a very motley crew of workshops called Open Workshop. It's a growing collective of over 40 workshops that are currently operating across London. And yes, that does include makespaces and hackspaces and fab labs, but it's not our entire story. Emerging maker communities like Open Workshop are incredibly diverse. Within our network, there are 44 workshops, more than 24 disciplines, and over 125 different types of tools. The individuals within this collective are involved in a wide variety of activities, including experimentation, prototyping, small batch fabrication, hobbyism, in some cases very extreme hobbyism, and community programs. To characterize this a bit more clearly, we can compare the creative open access scene in London pre and post rise of the maker, as we have termed it today. So before roughly 2008, here's a look at the types of materials which were regularly floating around London public workshops. Beyond 2008 and today, it's expanded quite significantly. Now we can look at the types of tools which were made openly accessible pre sort of roughly 2008. Is it can we dim the lights? What is this? No, just shut the lights off, whoever is doing that. I've not done that. What is this? Is that any better? Really? Okay, well, I'll share these with you guys afterwards. Hey, better? Right, okay. I was expecting a few more oohs and ahs. That explains it. Anyway, right, so materials, openly accessible, floating around in the making and manufacturing scene in London, roughly before 2008, and then afterwards, and I mean, that is just an absolute sampling of them. Thank you, whoever did that. Brownie points. The types of tools which were being made openly accessible in London before 2008, and today. Oh, I love this group. And again, the types of disciplines and practices which were being undertaken in public workshops and in the open realm pre-2008 and today. Hey! I know that voice. So, and I'd like to note that this incredible diversity of this network is to a large extent symptomatic of the city's rapid redevelopment, and I'll explain a bit more going forward. Today, London's makespaces and public workshops more broadly function as hubs for the city's vast making community. Hobbyists and practitioners are coming together to share skills, knowledge, and resources on a hyper-local, regional, and global level. They've become places where local communities, practitioners, and consumers are overlapping, forging new ways of working, socializing, and producing. The locality of these workshops and their organizational structure enables them to be more adaptive and responsive to local needs and communities far faster than conventional models, addressing real needs, problems, issues, and gaps within the community far quicker and more inclusively. But fundamentally, it's not just about our open workshops. It's the city's wider maker ecology as a whole, including the fabricators we partner with on larger jobs, the businesses who sell our goods, the galleries who show our work, and the suppliers who provide us with materials. Open workshops connect this distributed network of resources, forging an ever-rising infrastructure of communal production. Increasingly referred to as the land of the recently possible, this ecosystem enables individuals to turn complex concepts into sophisticated prototypes and quickly manufacture products in smaller quantities, often remaining competitive against traditional forms of large-scale manufacturing. The sophistication of such an interconnected, human-centered urban manufacturing network is a global phenomenon. I've seen it myself in London, as well as San Francisco, and most recently, Shenzhen. On a global level, this shift is forging new relationships, partnerships, and ways of working together, both commercially and socially. And just as an aside, and a bit of bragging rights, I've just landed from a 2-week tour of Shenzhen, of the maker culture there, where we brought 3 UK makers over to Shenzhen to bring their products to manufacture. And contrary to the picture most often depicted by the media, and to echo Phoenix's allusion to Foxconn's chicken manufacturing, Shenzhen is not just a mass manufacturing city belching out thousands of minimal viable products per minute. Whilst we were there, we partnered with 3 micro factories to manufacture the maker products, each of which invited us to watch the entire production process from start to finish. Some products we manufactured in batch runs of 500, some as small as 20, and yes, the factory still gave us the time of day. For the 3 UK makers on the trip, being given this first-hand experience was revolutionary, to say the least. The ability to see the whole production process in such detail allowed them to fully realize the systemic nature of their product. The days were punctuated by light bulb moments, and which then turned into about 2 weeks of continuous iterations until we finally got them to begin manufacture. Refocusing the lens back onto London for a minute, the city's industrial and creative industry is thriving today. It has remained a home to artists, designers, fabricators, craftsmen, and hobbyists alike, and it contributes roughly £21 billion annually to the London economy, and creates 1 out of every 6 new jobs in the city. Yet, as is evident in the Ujima House case, across London, the spaces where people can make things are being exponentially squeezed, increasingly leaving public workshops with their affordability, accessibility, and shared resources as the last refuge for our vital manufacturing and creative industries. London's creative industries are part of the whole ecosystem that makes this city diverse and functional. They provide services, a vast diversity of business and entrepreneurship. They help to create employment and social value and establish long-term relationships with local communities. Yet many are clinging precariously to their space. Within the next 5 years, it's estimated that nearly 30% of creative workspaces in London will fall under threat, as they will not be given the right to renew their rental agreements, nor the ability to secure new premises. This practice of rationing off meanwhile short-term flexible leasing for creative workspace is not an acceptable norm for our urbanized city to be built upon. It's unsustainable, precarious, and, in my opinion, woefully inadequate. The industrial roots of London are not its afterthought, but rather the thing that affords a sense of place against an increasingly homogenized city landscape. In order for industrial and creative industries to thrive in the city and to continue having the social, cultural, and economic impact they do, we need the appropriate support from and inclusion within London development plans. But if we can learn anything from Adrian's talk earlier, history may very well repeat itself, and we may end up finding ourselves on our own. Which, to be totally honest, I'm pretty okay with, because it gives us a sense of freedom to do things our way, and quite possibly better, rather than what local authorities feel is appropriate for us. But as most often, as I think a few of these speakers have said today, an open door policy is not it's just not enough. And if we are striving to develop community resources and networks that meet real needs and generate impact, then we are going to have to work really hard for it. So that means, that's it. Sorry. So that means working hard and working together on this. I'm not saying that we necessarily need to make more things, but it does mean that we need to start working together. We need to start collaborating together more. We need to help each other more. We need to share more. We need to speak to each other more. So I'd just like to end by giving a bit of advice of saying, if you're a workshop or a maker in this larger maker community, follow up with that potential collaboration with the shop next door. Email that master's student back, apologize, and say, yes, of course you have time to talk about their research and to make spaces. Make time for things like monthly meetups, and I'm looking at every single OWL person in this room, but just work at it and realize that aggregation is the best principle we have. Together, we can make this happen. So just to sum up, our present and future is in our hands, more than we are probably willing to admit at the moment. It should be less about what the local authorities in the city will allow us to do, and more about what we choose to do and how we choose to do it. Thanks.